That's not Monica.
No, me. Sorry.
Nubia.
Nubia? Nubia, could we get roll call? Up.
Councilmember Kane?
Present.
Councilmember Rand?
Present.
Councilmember Soto?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia? Absent. Mayor?
Present. Thank you. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
The host would like you to unmute your microphone. You can press *6 to unmute.
Council, any changes to the agenda?
Yes, actually, what I'd like to propose is that on item number 2, I would like to break that down into 2 different items. There are, within item number 2, there is a resolution to ratify a contract amendment, and there's also a resolution to approve a contract extension. I'd like to separate those and make that possibly, I guess, 2 and 3, making the ratification of a contract amendment as item number 2, and possibly making the resolution to approve a contract extension to item number 3.
Okay, perfect. Do we need a motion for that, or is it Tom?
Just consensus from the council.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think we have consensus, so we'll go ahead and separate the item number 2 into 2 and 3 to discuss those 2 points separately. We're going to go ahead and move on to citizen comments. At a special meeting, member of the public wishes to address the council on a matter of this time, wishes to discuss and take action on any item on the agenda. 3 minutes.
Thank you. And now we got I want to see the bill. You know, we do have our in-house clerk, and to me, this sounds like a lawyer. I'm sorry. No. 2 minutes. For me, my position hasn't changed since yesterday. I don't like the sheriff's office position, but it is the best option we have now. You folks, get your tax paid, get these people in here, and then hire our chief of police. You got to get it out, make it happen. Don't play it. Make this thing not a joke. It is a place. You guys know what to do. You guys hire this department to bring in. You guys make all this make it work. Thank you.
Is the YouTube working? Should be working. Okay, I think there's a position. The YouTube. So we're trying to fix that.
They cannot hear anything to fix that, or whatever it is before we proceed.
You still getting that?
Is the stream on YouTube on Zoom, or is that our stream?
Yeah. Just wait. Hello? Test. Hello? Test. Is it any better? They're saying that it's better now. Yeah. Test.
Test. So this is the public mic. Is this one echoing?
Yeah, it's better now. We're gonna go ahead and move on to any other citizen comments at this time? Go ahead, sir.
My name is Alan Cadiente. Can everybody hear me okay? No echo? My question would be, or my concern would be, ever since Chris Soria was the chief, he was our prior captain. And before that, we had a position of lieutenant. And if the council is worried about the current officers, meaning the tenured sergeants, there's nobody in the department that has a qualification, then maybe we should have had some people in the acting position, lieutenant or acting captain, so we don't languish for another 6 months or a year. I mean, in 6 months' time, you could figure out between the two sergeants, or even a year's time, who's able to cut the job. 2 of the sergeants, from what I know, have their BAs. 1 has a master. So education isn't the problem. If you're talking about experience, small department. 2 sergeants have over 5, 6, maybe even 10 years experience. I retired from the department in 2016. Extending, I think commander or lieutenant, Hale, no big deal extend his contract. But you as a group better figure something out in 6 months to a year. Either you're going to promote somebody or let somebody be acting, or pick somebody from the outside and quit wasting everybody's time. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments?
Hi, Tony Marquez. I've actually wasn't too crazy about the Sheriff's Department coming in when Councilwoman Maria Soto had brought it to our attention. Didn't know what to expect, never had it before. But after working with the Sheriff's Department and Chief Hale at this time, it has been positive. It has been productive at our police department. I'm not sure what the problem is after working with Chief Hale, and if any of you had a chance to work with him, you would see that it is productive. And he does do a good job, and he shows up. I mean, there's nothing we haven't asked Chief Hale for that he hasn't provided or shown up on his own time to do. So I'm not sure for the two that voted no on why, but maybe rethink that a little bit and maybe come back with a different verdict tonight. Thank you.
Well, you can stay, I'll tell you why I voted no. From the original contract to the new contract is a $21 difference for the same identical service. The $50,000 raised throughout the, it was $250,000 compared to $275,000.
We know
If we're getting this, let me finish. If we're getting the same service, same
I'm still on my
employer.
3 minutes though, right?
No, you can, I'll give you extra time if we can, Mayor.
Okay.
I want to explain myself why I voted no. It's a $21 an hour raise. An hour. Do that, do the math. I'll do it for you actually right now.
That's fine.
No,
You
no,
can
no,
do the
I
math.
want you to,
Okay.
21 times,
You can do the math, all you would
it's
like.
$840 a week difference, a week. Times that by 52 weeks out of the year, $43,000 difference. I'm thinking about the budget. That's why I
Renegotiate.
voted no.
That's why we're here, right? To
Yeah, I want to
renegotiate
explain
the
to you
contract.
why I voted no, so we could be on the same page. The second option was that we will get a captain with captain experience. And that captain would be, obviously, I'm pretty sure Chuck Hale. From today to tomorrow, if he changes as a captain, his experience don't change. He still has experience as a lieutenant. Just because you change the title doesn't mean the experience comes with the title. That comes with the actual experience.
And you've seen his resume.
No, I'm going off what our city manager said. We can't have two lieutenants. If you watch the yesterday meetings, she didn't want one lieutenant teaching another lieutenant how to do the job. So she wants to get a captain. But as of right now, we're getting the same captain that just was a lieutenant today. So that's the reason.
Okay, and then where does that leave the city?
I'm
We
fine,
have-
I'm okay with signing the sheriff's contract, but the money gotta be right.
So that's why we negotiate.
I wish I was involved in the negotiation.
We still need a chief of police, and thank goodness we did have somebody, and hopefully he's still willing to stay. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments?
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Hilda Lopez. So, based on what I saw last night, at last night's meeting, it seems as though the option that was approved for the city to move forward with the plan of action is actually a really good option, and I commend Vanessa and the Sheriff's Department for coming together to figure out a plan that is going to get us to a place where, from my interpretation, and please, Vanessa, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to provide the foundation so that we can grow lower level, for a lack of knowledge or, officers, into the position of eventually growing them into a police chief. As it stands, please correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have that pathway of professional development. It would be amazing to be able to put that into action, put that in play for a reasonable, less than $22 an hour, more than what we're paying now. It creates, in my opinion, longevity for individuals that are currently working within the department, and also career development, as I previously mentioned. So I as I said, I commend Vanessa for being intuitive into the needs of the city and moving, making this the recommendation of the city staff. As for the council members who voted no, Maria, Councilmember King, I'm curious as to if this is not a viable option for the city, in your opinions. What is your vision? What is your opinion on how we should move forward? If this is not, in your opinions, a good option, I'm just curious as to what you would like to see happen within the department, and overall the status of the city.
It's exactly how you stated. Second in command. We do have officers over in the department that meet that criteria. If our interim chief were not here, there should be somebody in that place. But according to Vanessa yesterday, that was unknown. A succession plan was in place, and that has been the plan, even with our previous city manager. And as we look at it, we do have sergeants over there. Alan had stated that we do have officers over in the department with the education and the experience. They've been put in those places when they were needed during certain transitional phases of the city. So yes, I'm a proponent of wanting to recruit within.
But wouldn't this plan provide that, unless I'm missing something, wouldn't this plan, by creating a position for lieutenant that is employed by the city, provide that for career development from within? And that's kind of where I'm not understanding.
We don't have to spend the $275,000 to make that decision. I mean, we have employees that are qualified. I'll give you an example for our public works.
Qualified as
To become
chief of police?
That's the city standards. So perfect example, within the last year and a half, we had 3 staff members that used to work for the public works. According to the city staff, they were not qualified to be public works directors. They left this city, and we got 3 of them in different cities as public directors. So maybe our standards are way too high where we can't fulfill the positions.
Well, I don't think that's a totally different
Yeah, so
conversation.
we have,
but I'm just curious as to what your vision for
I think we have
career
employees that-
development
I think
and
we have
getting
a-
a chief in place would be without the assistance of the sheriff's department. As Vanessa stated last night, and I know from personal experience that this is a volatile job market. It's very hard to fill positions for recruitments. I just don't see that we are going to be able to get to a place where the city has a chief of police without the assistance of the sheriff's department. And, with all due respect, the lack of consistency from the council over the last year and a half does not make the city of Livingston an employer of choice. I am just asking that you guys please consider moving forward with a plan that is beneficial for the city and that is going to put us in a better position than we are now, and that we will be in the next 6 months. Thank you.
Mayor, if
Yes.
I may just share a quick comment that we did have, in fact, back in 2019, a clear second in command, like Councilmember Soto stated. However, due to our budget issues, that position was unfunded. It was frozen, and it's been frozen for 2 years. So we don't have that position at the moment. So we don't have a second in command.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Okay, we bring it over to council now and move to our discussion and potential action items. So we have the first one, motion to repeal contract extension with Merced County Sheriff's Office for interim police chief services. So attorneys, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, last night, we took a vote that it was an illegal vote. We need to repeal it. I'm just going to start by saying that. Councilmember Garcia thought he did not have a conflict. Unfortunately, he was reading backwards what he was quoting, so he did have a conflict. and that would make the contract void and illegal with potentially other repercussions. So that's why we scheduled the meeting tonight, so you can repeal the action that you took last night and then reconsider the item again.
Thank you. Want to add anything else?
Yeah, so just to be really clear, you know, last night it happened, I think there was like 3 minutes and there was a little bit of delay. And so I think collectively, you know, our job is to kind of stop sometimes and take a moment and make sure what we're doing. I think everything, I want to make very clear that, and I've talked to the Mayor Pro Tem, I think everything was done with the best of intentions. It was just a slight misunderstanding. Based off of his misunderstanding, it became necessary very quickly to call this special meeting to repeal the action that was taken with his participation, and then to have the item reconsidered without his participation. So I want to be very clear, it came from a good spot, and it had the city's best interest in mind. It was unintentional. It was just a misreading of a specific FPPC regulation, and because of that, we're going to, the first action tonight is the job, and the goal is to remedy that to the extent that we can.
And to that end, we do need the members who voted for it to make the motion to repeal.
Council, any questions, comments?
Before we go there, if you can expand a little bit exactly and point to what specifics, like items, you know, if you're referring to the 1090, you know, so that we can have a better understanding and explain what that is. You know, you might, you know, as from probably coming from years of experience in legal issues, to you guys is just pretty normal, but your language is not general language for the public. So, you know, I want to also give you an opportunity to educate me a little bit more, and just if you can expand on that.
Okay, so to be very clear, so as you guys know, I used to work for the Fair Political Practices Commission and the legal division. And so some of the legal opinions that were drafted there have my signature on them. And in the former iteration of our firm, Steve Churchwell was the first name partner, and he was the former general counsel for about a decade, appointed by the governor to serve at the Fair Political Practices Commission. So there are two entities that oversee what I'm going to call some of these, you know, city council, and it applies to other jurisdictions, conflict of interest / kind of ethics rules and guidelines. The first one has to do with just straight conflicts of interest, you know, what you can participate in, what you can't participate in. Most of those are based off of decisions that are made in proximity to things like ownership interests that you have or direct economic interests that you have. When it comes to 1090, it's a little bit more specific, and it relates to figure out how to word this. It relates to having a direct interest in the contract. So, as you know, I think it's known, the Mayor Pro Tem is an employee of the Sheriff's Department, and by virtue of that, the vote we were taking on last night was whether or not to extend a contract which has a financial benefit to his employer, which is the Merced County Sheriff's Department. The Mayor Pro Tem recused himself in the first vote. He recused himself last night before the meeting. And what he did is he had a misreading of a regulation called 1705, which is legally required participation. And I'll read the relevant portion so that we're all on the same page, because I think this is important. This is part of what you and I have discussed about actually making sure that people, we don't just tell people things, but we actually read and make sure that they understand, which is what I think you're getting at tonight. So that provision reads, this regulation shall be construed narrowly and shall, and then number 1, not be construed to permit an official who is otherwise disqualified under section 87-100 to vote to break a tie. The reason that as I understand it, the reason the Mayor Pro Tem was confused is it went under legally required participation. And there are certain circumstances under which somebody who has a conflict of interest is allowed to participate. So as an example, when that would be the only way in which there would be a quorum of the government body. In other words, there's 5 of you on the city council. If there were only 2 members that were present that didn't have a conflict, and the only other member that was present was somebody who did, then out of necessity for the government entity to perform its basic government functions, that member, while disclosing the conflict of interest, would be under the law eligible to participate. But by contrast, as we read in that regulation, that does another situation that might come up is when what was the other situation we talked about, Newbie, on the way down? I'm trying to remember.
Lack of a quorum.
Oh, that was the lack of the quorum. When was the other one? Anyways, there's another situation under which a council member would participate despite that. Oh, it would be so for instance, it happens a lot in assessment districts and LLMD. So for instance, let's say half the council lives in a particular assessment district. So that's an area where you get assessed for lighting, landscaping, maintenance. And it's not so large that it affects the community generally, but we have 3 members of the council that it affects. 2 members can participate. What happens is the remaining council members who are present would draw straws, and depending on how you structure it, whoever draws the long straw, the short straw, that's the member who participates, and the conflict is waived for purposes of their participation. Again, so that the government entity can conduct business and be able to make a decision. Otherwise, in small communities like Livingston, you'd often run into situations where no vote could ever happen. So my understanding is there was some confusion on the mayor pro tem's part between when somebody is legally required to participate, and then a misread of the section C1 that I said, which, just again to be very clear, this regulation gets construed narrowly, so it's tight. We're not going to be liberal with it. We're not going to take an expansive view of it, and shall not be construed to permit an individual to vote to break a tie. So he just read it the opposite. That created both a null and void contract, but what it also had the effect of doing is because the deputy mayor pro tem would be deemed to have a financial interest in the contract of his employer, it potentially affected the other council members, potentially aiding and abetting him in voting on something in which he had a financial interest. And the consequences for those kinds of violations are not that great. And so I think we all kind of learned by moving fast, sometimes it's good to slow down. But this mistake was merely made by virtue of a misreading with no ill intent in trying to do what was in the best interest of the cities. And so before that contract could ever take any force or effect, before the extension would have any force and effect, we basically took the action to agendize, have an 8 p.m. meeting, because that was the quickest that we could do it once we realized the error, and meet the 24-hour special meeting standards under the law. So we did that so that we could repeal that vote and then have a reconsideration without his participation and influence on the ultimate outcome. Would I sufficiently describe it? I don't know if I want to go into.
I do believe that you have, in my own research and looking at the same item and reading exactly the same thing, it looks like it's a very gray area that it's open to different interpretations. Obviously, from my perspective, now being in the legal world for 28 or 30 years like you guys have, some of this stuff can, and even today, so, and that is why even last night when you and I had the conversation, I did have a suggestion, a wish to have, and for my own sake, for my own peace of mind, to be able to better understand and help me make decisions, to have an additional legal
Opinion.
opinion,
Get a
yeah,
second opinion.
a second opinion, not necessarily, and you and I talked about this,
Yeah.
not saying that, I don't trust you guys, but, it's just having a second opinion on something this concerning would only help me and everyone involved in
Yeah.
being more certain and to what, and then figure out what we need to do.
Yeah, so correct. So to be very clear, so that people have context, right? This was a personal conversation between
Yes.
only you and me,
Yes.
and that personal conversation has not been shared with anybody else.
Okay.
So just so that people aren't
Okay.
thinking that there's thing. I want to be very, very clear. I understand that for folks who don't practice law, that could seem gray. For attorneys, this is what we talked about. It's not so gray. We kind of know the rules in which we work with, but I have absolutely no problem with you getting a second opinion and kind of validating what we said. I will say, at least action on the first item, I feel, given the implications, is necessary tonight, and there are larger implications, as we talked about, because right now we have a contract that's set to otherwise expire in the coming days. So I don't think it would be, I absolutely support, I've given you guys names in the past of, I think maybe 7 to 10 different lawyers that do that kind of work that you could get that second opinion from, and I think it should be a council decision. I don't think it should be influenced by the city manager, by the city attorney. I think it should be a council decision. But I absolutely support the idea if you guys want to get a second opinion. But my recommendation is that we do take action on the first one tonight because of the implications of not.
Yeah, I just wanted it to kind of provide all of that information in regards to the conversation. Thank you.
Doug, just for clarification, I know you mentioned, or you spoke about the actual conflict between the mayor pro tem and participating in this item. Can you elaborate a little bit more? I mean, obviously based on your experience and representing different cities, but is there like actual, not case law, but actual situations in other cities where it pertains to this particular situation we're facing now?
Yes, so Nubi, you want to take over? Nubi did some research today. I mean, there was a legal opinion that was right on point dealing with the deputy sheriff and entering into a contract with that deputy sheriff's department. So I'll let Nubi kind of go over that.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Nubia Goldstein, Deputy City Attorney. As Doug mentioned, this actually is a relatively common issue because normally you have individuals who are employees of public agencies, also involved in public service, serve on city councils for other jurisdictions. So it actually was really fortuitous that in 2000, the Attorney General's office did issue an opinion regarding this particular issue. And in that case, the question, which is very similar to the circumstances that the council is facing now, is whether a city council, one member of which is a deputy sheriff, can it enter into a contract with the sheriff to provide police services to the city. And so based off of an evaluation of the language in Government Code 1090, there is the evaluation of what is deemed a remote interest. And what a remote interest basically means is you have an employee who has a financial interest simply because they're an employee and they're receiving a salary. They don't necessarily hold a position of a higher executive position, but they're receiving a salary from an agency that is looking to contract with the city. So in that instance, the Attorney General's opinion was that it is legally allowable for the council to consider and approve that contract, but only under very specific circumstances. And that specific circumstance was that the council member who had the financial interest was required to disclose the financial interest as part of the meeting, recuse themselves and not participate, and that allowed for the rest of the council to move forward with considering the contract. So again, from the perspective of an opinion that was issued more than 20 years ago, the Attorney General's office has been very consistent with that advice, and so because of that, it is allowable, but again, under very specific circumstances. Once you have that member who has the financial conflict step outside the scope of that exception and participate in voting on something that they have a financial interest in, that's when you start running afoul of the requirements under the law. And as Doug mentioned, there's a whole host of unfortunate, or lack of a better term, very, very strict consequences.
And if we could, because I want to keep consistent with the promise that I made to Councilmember Moran from the day that I did this RFP pitch, can you go over and just name the parties that were involved and the county that was involved as well, if there's a citation so people can look it up?
The opinion itself, the opinion is 00-706 from the Attorney General's office. And in this particular instance, it was, I don't know if they actually disclosed it. It was at the request, actually, of Dennis Cardoza, a member of the State Assembly, to evaluate it as part of, I believe, probably a constituent in his district. But that's really the scope of the information provided in the Attorney General's opinion. But I'm more than happy to circulate this to the council and make it available to the public.
Yeah, so my old boss, so. Did that sufficiently answer your question, Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Council, any other questions, comments at this time? All right, we're gonna take it out for public comment at this time. Any comments regarding this, the first item?
Good evening, Council. Rodrigo Espinoza. I just wanted to ask why is Council Member Kang not stepping down as well as Raul Garcia? Clearly he's in conflict. The community knows he's in conflict. His brother was fired from the city with the current chief that the contract's being taken with. To me, that's a clear conflict as well. So he should not be voting on this contract. He should have stepped down from the beginning. And obviously, his brother's trying to get back to be employed again by the city. So that's a clear conflict. There's financial interest there as well, because he resides, they live in the same house, as far as I know. So there's financial interest there, as well as the other council member. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments at this time?
Good evening. I wasn't going to speak up, but I'm just concerned as a citizen. I mean, what is the backup plan if this fails? I mean, who's going to lead? Do you guys have an idea? I mean, that you guys can share with us? And
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm willing to make the motion. They have to agree to our motion.
okay.
Look at them. I'll pass it. I think Chuck's doing a fantastic job. But my thing is the price.
But
So-
what if they
I'll
say
make a motion. Can I make a motion to extend the contract right now? Oh, okay.
what if they say screw it? You know?
How is it my fault?
Huh?
If they say screw it, how is it our fault?
Well, you should have a backup plan.
That's a city manager job, not council. I'll appoint somebody.
Who?
I don't have nobody, but I'm saying, if you want me to appoint somebody, but I don't have the option, that's not my job to appoint nobody.
You're bringing a lot of stress to everyone.
Please explain why. I'm willing to negotiate. Once you have a negotiation, you can't just have one-sided. If they ask for $1 million, do you expect me to give them the $1 million?
No.
Did you read the contract?
Yes, I did.
You see anything?
Please be respectful. I'm being
I am,
respectful
but I'm just
to
saying,
you.
like, you're blaming it on me, like it's
I'm
my
not
fault.
blaming it. I'm just asking, as a concerned citizen, what is the backup plan? I mean, if you're saying no, you should have a backup plan. You should say, okay, if they say screw it, who are we going to put out there? Share it with us so we can be not so concerned.
Vanessa, you have an answer to that? Well, I'm sorry, can we get that from a what happens if it's a no? What is our next option? Do we have different firms that we could hire to represent? Like, I'm pretty sure this is a common thing, right? Can we please get a legal opinion on this one?
Yeah, so in the event that, so as it stands right now, the contract is set to expire in the upcoming days. In the absence of that, it is within the city manager's authority to be able to appoint. It could be somebody like a retired annuitant that's done in other jurisdictions. If it's above $10,000, it has to be ratified by the city council, or it can be an internal hire and internal promotion in either an acting or interim capacity, depending on the nature of the position. So there would be a handful of different options that would be available if this contract was to lapse in the upcoming days.
Excuse me, Mayor and Council, I don't want to cut anybody off, but this first item is to repeal the action from last night. Some of these comments might be more appropriate for the items 2 and 3 if you decide to go there later.
Thank you.
Good, Paul Samuel. First of all, I want to apologize. I'm a little frustrated with you guys, not everybody there. This shouldn't have come down to, I don't know when the contract expires. Does it expire tomorrow, I believe, or when does it expire? Can somebody tell me that?
May 21st.
I'm sorry?
May 21st,
May
2020,
21st.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And that's my frustration when we talk about public safety. I apologize for my tone of voice. It was the frustration. We've been living here, all of us, for a long time. I have nothing but highest respect for anybody that does public service, regardless if you're an officer on the street or sergeant or chief. We're out there, and they're committed folks. But to me, I'm sorry, I've been involved in the city long enough to know that without proper leadership, that $40,000 you're talking about, one bad decision by untrained sergeant can cost us 10 times that. Remember that when you guys make your vote. It can be very expensive. Untrained sergeant can cause a lot of headaches. So I know that the city manager does have certain authorities, like was discussed. If something falls apart, Vanessa, I hope that you will exercise your duty to do what's good for the city and keep somebody there in that position that can make a properly trained decision. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I may just.
Yes, go ahead.
Share, it is part of my job, it's to ensure that we have proper coverage, proper leadership, proper stability in our departments. I believe that I have done my due diligence by bringing you a contract for recommendation and approval back in April, so we would not be in this situation today, the day before the contract expires. So with that said, yes, it is my job to have those backup plans, but I cannot ensure that I will have a backup when I'm always working on crisis mode. And this is working on crisis mode, having me have to figure something out the next day when this expires.
Any other citizen comments?
Hilda Lopez, and I just want to piggyback on what Vanessa has said. You know, she has done her due diligence to do everything she can to put the city in a great position, but it's the votes by this council that has brought us to this crisis mode, as she has said today. And so I would ask that you guys really think about the choices that you guys make long term, rather than this is what I want now, this is what I think is best now. Your votes have consequences, and clearly that has not been planned for. And I'm thankful that Vanessa has done everything she can to try to keep us in a good position. And I hope that you guys tonight going forward, we'll do the same. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments? The microphone. Just to remind everybody, this is regarding the first item. This is the repel the contract. So the comments have to be specific to this item, please.
Alan Cadiente again. Maybe you could help me out. City manager, does she have administrative right for the betterment of the city? No? Okay. I was going to say she can make a decision in 24 hours without a vote. She has administrative right.
Any other citizen comments?
Evening, Corey Gibson, Undersheriff. On this item, I would ask that the council make a motion and repeal it. Let's move forward and try to figure out how we solve the challenge in front of us. And so with that, I would ask that you make the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? On the phone? Anybody on the phone? Well, you can raise your hand on Zoom, please, if you have any questions.
At this time, Mayor, I do not see any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, we're going to bring it up, bring it back to council for any further clarification or motions. And just to be clear, the person that made the motion would have to.
Councilmember Moran or yourself?
I make the motion at this time to repeal the contract extension with the Merced County Sheriff's Office for interim police chief services as it was discussed yesterday.
And I second that motion. So we have a motion by Councilmember Jose Moran and a second by myself, Mayor Aguilar. Can we get roll call? Doug?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 2. So I know we're dividing, splitting, making 2 additional or 1 additional item. Councilmember Jose Moran, just to clarify, which one's the first that you want to tackle? Or
In this case, it would be considered item number 2, which is, give me 1 second.
to approve the contract or the other one?
If you look at page 2 of the staff report, it would be the resolution of the City Council of the City of Livingston ratifying a contract amendment between Merced County Sheriff's Office and the City of Livingston for interim Chief of Police services through September 30, 2022.
Okay. Vanessa, you want to, or Doug, you guys want to talk about that one? You know what?
I'll do it then.
The current.
Yes, mayors, council members, this is a ratification of the current contract with the Merced County Sheriff's Department. This was something put in place, like I shared with you before or yesterday, that this is within the purchasing policies that we have in place in the city, where if the contract scope is the same, the rate is the same, and we are not changing any budget dollars that have already been approved from the city council, we would be able to extend the term of this contract. We have done it in the past with other contracts. We have the precedent from the previous law firm, from the current law firm as well. So we extended this to have a backup in place before we could talk about the long-term and succession planning of the extension through June 30th. So this is the ratification done within the purchasing policies in the municipal code. through September 30.
Doug, do you have anything, or Tom, do you guys have anything else to add on that item?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, as you know, the city manager has a limit on her authority, which is set forth in the municipal code of $10,000. And because of that, that makes it necessary for this to take effect, for the contract to be ratified and approved by the city council. That's the reason that it's before you today and has been presented to you in the past. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
That's a
Council-
real question, so.
Go ahead.
On this, instead of 6 months, can I make a motion for 3 months?
We haven't taken public comment yet, so motions at this moment would not be appropriate, but it's certainly within this council's purview to make a motion for whatever term. It would be up to the sheriff's department to determine whether or not they would be willing to accept those terms, but you'd just be giving the city manager authorization under her purchasing power within the parameters that you approved tonight.
All right, council, any other questions? All right, we're gonna take it out for public comment at this time. Do we have any public comment regarding this specific item? Anybody on the phone, raise your hand if you're on Zoom.
At this time, I do not see any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so no hands raised. All right, so we'll bring it back to council for any other additional questions or comments regarding this item. Just to make it clear, so this is an action item we could take. We could actually vote on this, extending the current agreement, the current contract till September, based on the current money that's balanced.
So as I understand it, Mayor, if you were to ratify this proposal before you, or contract that's before you, then that would extend it, Vanessa have to help me, I believe through some day in September?
September 30th.
Through September 30th. And so that's the proposal before you, and as I understand it, and Vanessa will correct me if I'm wrong, there are leftover monies from your previous contract that would be able to pay for that, I think.
That's correct.
Yeah, so there's budgeted monies for it, although you'll be rolling money from one fiscal year to the new fiscal year.
Sheriff's Department, you have any comments on this?
Yeah, so this was option one that was presented to the city to look for a new police chief. This would give time for the city to do a recruitment, do a selection process, and select a chief at the same current rate. And that was the first option that was presented to the city originally. And so it's your purview. I would highly suggest that we not change the term of the contract, seeing it's already been approved by the Board of Supervisors, and that the unknown is, I don't know if it's going to take 2 weeks, 3 months, or the entirety of the contract. So I would hate to go back through all the staff hours to change a contract for a time period when, if you find a chief, you have my word that we're going to vacate immediately. We're only paying you for the time that's actually charged the city that he's actually here doing chief duties.
Thank you. Any additional questions by the council or comments? So as stated, this will, ratifying this would extend it till September, what is that? 30th of 2022. Go ahead, Doug.
So yeah, so it's not in the contract, but he did just have it recorded. So one thing that you could do is approve the contract. It is, and again, I think you have representation from the Sheriff's Department that I think we'd probably want to work out. And if we need to take a break to work that out, we probably could. What the advance notice provision would be, that if you wanted to terminate it earlier than the September date, that you have the ability to do that. So I think we would, if that was agreeable to the council, meaning that we would basically be able to keep the contract in place until such time as the police chief was put in place, then it sounds like there would be the rooms on the sheriff's contract to do it. I think we would just have to figure out what the advance notice would be.
Yeah, there's a 30-day clause in the contract, so you're going to tell us, hey, swearing ceremony's on this date, well in advance of the 30 days. So I don't believe it'll be an issue at all.
Thank you, sir. Council, questions, comments? What's that?
Once again, I think I'm sounding like a recording now, but I think it's just a great opportunity to reflect, to refresh our minds, and why we're here in this position. Yes, many times we want to be home and not deal with the stress, but that was part of the package. But also part of the package was making decisions for 18,000 people. And that's a big responsibility. And when we are considering whatever decision, I would highly suggest to consider those 18,000 people that we're here for. We should not be here for me, myself, and I, but rather 17,999 people. We are responsible for their safety. We are responsible for the services that they need to be provided. We are responsible to keep our departments running. And, and we need to be responsible and be prepared for whatever comes our way. And being here today, after 24 hours, in a way shows that we are being responsible. Now it's time to make a decision. And at this time, many times for years, even before I've been on this side of the dais, I heard it's all about safety, safety, safety. Well, our decision tonight is about safety. And after years, probably 2 or 3 years, there has been a lot of uncertainty, a lot of commotion, a lot of things going on in this department. Now we're trying to work together for the last 6 months, trying to make things happen, trying to bring back some stability to this community. And the residents, I feel they're feeling better with what we're doing until now. And that's a big problem. And whatever decision we make tonight, it's our responsibility, whichever way we vote. And at the same time, it's not only a full council responsibility, but the way I see it is an individual responsibility. Because if we create something that is not going to be stable no more, and we get rid of that foundation that we've been building this foundation, I don't know how many times. And we're finally getting there, and we're being proactive, we're getting things done, and the community is participating, and finally, I'm hearing good things about the different departments in the city, including the PD, which that was my biggest department people were complaining about for many different reasons. And when I hear people making good comments about that department, that tells me that we're heading in the right direction. So as this item right now, let's think about the item that we're discussing. Right now, we're not discussing a year, a different rate. We're just discussing what we approved, well, as a council, what you approved 6 months ago. I was the one vote that was not in favor of it, okay? and the rest of the council approved it. And this is your contract. This is the contract that you guys approved. So it's just, let's continue moving forward. Let's do this. Let's take it one step at a time. And then we can deal with the other item later. But right now, let's work with this, have some stability. Let's go through September, at least for now. And then we can figure the rest of it later. So those are my comments at this time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anybody else?
Yeah, I want to say something.
Go ahead.
You're right, Moran, was the contract that we signed. This contract never was brought up to us from the city manager. This was never an option. So I said no to the new contract. So this is a contract I voted on originally. See, if I would have voted yes, the city would have lost extra about $45,000. I think Chuck's doing a great job. I've actually had a conversation with him for like 2 hours the other day. I told him I'm for it, but exactly what I told him was the money's not there. So I don't know where Mr. Supervisor is getting his information from. I'm actually for the contract, but the only thing that was separating it was the money.
Oh, I may? Sure.
No, you don't have to. I thought you were, but you don't have to. So thanks. If there's no other comments, I'll say something. Just as I stated yesterday, I think public safety is one of the top priorities for the city, one of the top priorities for our community. That's an essential, basic, service that we need to provide. Quality service, people could trust and depend on. And I think having Chuck here, stabilizing the department, which was one of my priorities, stabilizing the department, gaining the trust from those guys, providing good leadership. He's done that. He's done that and more. So I cannot speak, any more good than what I have. And he's done an excellent job. I think the community's happy with what they're seeing. As stated before, my idea wasn't to bring the sheriff's department or anything like that, but that's how we ended up, and it's worked, and it's a good partnership. And I talk, luckily I'm a volunteer firefighter. I do see the guys out there, in calls and everything, and the feedback I receive from them is that they're happy. They see leadership, they see stability, they see progress, which are all good indicators of something working well. So to me, it's very important that we think about that. We think about the service that's currently being provided. I do understand the concerns about the money. I did people talk to me, and actually that was brought up just a couple hours ago. They do want to see somebody either promoted within. They want to see, like I said yesterday, their own police chief. But like everything else, it does take time. It takes preparation. We're not going to get there overnight. It's going to take time. And this provides us, to the very least, that we could please approve this till September, and that gives us at least some time to figure out if we need to extend it longer. What kind of plan are we going to come up with? But I think it's irresponsible to just leave it without extending any time whatsoever and them giving us notice. I think it is irresponsible. We hold that responsibility. We owe it to the guys in the department to give you guys that stability. For the very least, we could at least approve what we have in front of us till September 30th and maybe go from there. But like I stated, I think the council knows that that's one of the top priorities, public safety. We need to think beyond ourselves and any political drama, and just see what's working and continue with that. like I said, I do understand the concerns, the money, the difference, all that stuff. All plays a role, definitely. But you have to weigh the pros and cons. Definitely have to weigh if it's worth it or not. And to me, it's worth the difference. The partnership's worth it. The additional resources, everything you've done in the past few months. Like Jose stated yesterday, I believe that he wasn't expecting much. You guys are a professional organization. I did expect that you were going to provide that leadership, but you've gone beyond that. So, to my, not surprised, but my gratitude. So with that said, that's my statement, and let's see. Hopefully, we could go through this.
Mayor, just one thing. There are people that are trying to phone in. If we can take a moment to try to see if we can fix that.
Did somebody? Oh, they're trying to phone in.
They're trying to phone in, and there's some.
I know there's a link. Go ahead. Okay, we're using the line for the Zoom, so they could go to the Zoom link. There's a Zoom link, right, attached to the agenda.
So Mayor, there's a Zoom link attached to the agenda as well as a phone number with a meeting ID, and they can call in directly to Zoom. So we're monitoring but there do not appear to be additional individuals in a waiting room.
And there are people on the line though, right? And there are people.
There are.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to call in, dial by your location, the closest one would be 1-669-900-6833. Again, 669-900-6833. You may be required to put in a meeting code. It's the one that's listed in the Zoom link, so that would be 923-0934-3168. Repeat it one more time. 923-0934-3168. You can't have both the Zoom going and YouTube going and the telephone going without knocking one of them out.
Thank you, Doug, for that. I guess we could give a minute or two, see if anybody dials in after that.
And just as a reminder to the members of the public that are participating via Zoom, if you're calling in by phone, you can press *9, and that will raise your hand virtually so that we can pick that up on this end. Or alternatively, you can also put a message in the chat channel, and we can read that into the record as well.
Yeah, so I'm monitoring the chat as well, so if somebody's having trouble getting recognized, they can just say, I want to speak in the chat line, and I'll let you know.
Would it be convenient to mirror
the chat line?
the chat?
I don't think so, because I've already had a couple people ask me to make sure that the chat conversations aren't
Okay. Got it.
public, because they're asking questions.
Okay.
They don't necessarily want all of their personal information, the phone numbers and stuff like that displayed, so.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, I just wanted to highlight that the item number 2, the ratification of this contract, is merely a patch to the solution that we need, and that is the reason why I don't want to be I can't work patching things up all the time, and that's the reason why you have a recommendation to do a creating sustainability contract that will take us through, June 30, 2023. At the same time, this creating sustainability, it creates stability for the department, and it's just leadership that needs to be provided. It's the responsible thing to do for our men and women in uniform. And I believe that, absent of this contract with the Sheriff's Office, you're really just putting the city in an operational emergency. I mean, if we don't have a command staff, we are essentially defunding our police department.
Mayor, I do at this time have a hand raised on Zoom.
Perfect.
So if the caller with the last three digits of 361 can unmute, you can proceed.
Go go ahead. On Zoom.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Am I live? Am I on?
You are.
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so let's all just take a moment and get on the same page. The page of integrity and truth. So the mayor pro tem lied about recusing himself because he stayed on the call and he knew he wasn't able to vote. That's why we have an illegal vote. Just like Chief Hale has lied in the past to judges. We need the sheriffs and their corruption out of the city immediately. That's all I have to say.
Anybody else on Zoom?
At this time, I do not see any other hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and proceed, council.
If I may, and I just want to,
Hello?
Yeah, you're.
Is there somebody else on the phone?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, they remuted.
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Your time has expired. I keep muting you.
I know.
We'll unmute you again if you want to speak in the future when you're recognized. Thank you.
When I'm recognized?
Yeah,
Wait, what?
when it's your turn to speak.
Oh, when it's my turn to speak. Okay, so you're gonna let me know when I can go?
You just went. You just spoke.
Is it the same person?
Yeah, it's the same person.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Go ahead.
so I just want to, I think there's been a confusion based on Mr. Kang's comments. And I just want to clarify. Right now, the item that we're discussing, the ratification of a contract amendment that will extend through September 30th, 2022, does not involve additional funds. It's the same contract that we ratified before. The only time that we're ratifying or amending is the time. Am I correct? 'Cause he mentioned something about $40,000, and I don't believe that's right.
No, that was if we would have gone to the new contract.
Yeah, but that's a separate
We
item.
made that motion last week, the other day.
So I think the city manager is probably the best person to clarify. This would be an extension. I'm not sure whether or not it's under the new rates or the old rates, but it would extend the contract
It's an extension to the contract approved on November 2021.
with the old rates,
So
correct?
it's the old rate then, right?
Vanessa, it's the old rates?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, this wasn't communicated yesterday. Yesterday, she clearly said it was the new rate.
We're talking about the extension, not the ratification.
Yeah, that is why I wanted it to separate the two items, because it was becoming, to make it less confusing. So the item that we're discussing right now does not involve any additional funds, just to be clear.
That's correct, Councilmember Moran.
Any other questions by the council at this time?
And with this ratification, it doesn't include the additional 90 days, correct?
This is the old contract. This is not, it doesn't have any terms of the 90 days. It has only a 30-day term.
I just wanted,
A 30-day notice to terminate.
it has, okay.
So, and you have the presentation. I don't want to speak for the undersheriff, but I think he's already said that upon 30 days' notice, that they would be willing to terminate the contract. I mean, candidly, so that he doesn't have to vote. If you don't like the time frame, you could cook in when you want it. You could basically give notice today and make that a part of your adopting motion as to the date that you want it to expire, or that you want it to end, so.
Any other questions, council? Motions?
You know what? I'll make this motion for Supervisor Espinoza. I do not have a conflict, and I would like to renew the contract for the next 4 months, for September, what was the date?
30th.
30th for this year. So I make the motion.
I'll second.
Oh, we have a motion by Councilmember King and a second by Councilmember Jose Moran. Doug, Roll call.
Councilmember Kane?
Yes.
Councilmember Moran?
Yes.
Councilmember Soto?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem is absent. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion is approved 401 with the one being absent.
Thank you, Doug. So we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 3. Are we going to discuss that as well? Is it, we're going to table it, bring it back?
At this time, I'd like to ask the council to consider tabling this item until a further, a date to be determined, to allow everyone the opportunity to get a little bit more research. So at this time, I would like to request for this item to be tabled to a date to be determined.
So we have a request by Councilmember Jose Moran to table this item, not table, but. So, Mr. Councilmember Jose Moran, do you want to make that motion, an actual motion?
Can you repeat that again? Because I wasn't able.
So as I understood your motion, this item, which was broken apart from agendized item 2, would be to consider an extension, which is effectively a new contract with the Sheriff's Department as opposed to an extension of the old one, to a date to be determined in the future. So does that adequately represent your motion?
Can you rephrase it? Just to make sure I'm.
Continue to a date in the future consideration of a new contract or contract extension with the Merced County Sheriff's Department.
That is correct.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Jose Moran. Do we have a second? I'll go ahead and second it. So we have a motion by Councilmember Jose Moran and a second by myself. Doug?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. So that's all the items we have tonight. We're going to go ahead and adjourn our meeting at 9:25 p.m.
I got a question for the city manager
Is this,
regarding in the future agenda and other questions about the employments. So how many contract employees do you have right now? This is for the city manager.
We have,
Can you name the titles and say so the residents will know?
I don't have a contract employee, I have consultants.
Consultants, how many consultants do you have?
I have a planning consultant, building permit department.
For your department
technician.
heads?
I'm sorry?
For your department heads?
For my department
Yes.
heads, I have a contract with the Sheriff's Department for police officer, and that's about it. I'm
What was-
recruiting for a
so-
finance director, and I'm recruiting for a public works director.
For the public works directors, do you got any applications?
I don't have applications to bring forward, but we're taking applications. I'm looking and evaluating the applications.
Because on the website, that position doesn't exist. On the city website, so I don't know how you would get people to apply if they don't know we're hiring.
Well, I'm considering 2 candidates at the moment.
Where did they apply? Because the position was never open on our city webpage.
We had a contract with the executive
Doug?
team, okay?
I think given that this is a special meeting and
Yeah.
we don't have the same liberties that we do at a general meeting, I probably would just make sure that we stay as agendized and we can have that discussion at an upcoming meeting if need be.
thank you. We are adjourning at 9:27 p.m. Thank you.